Welcome in to the Bill Austin Radio Studios. My name is Gabrielle Ducharme. I am joined here by my co-hosts Nicole Pinter and Sarandon Raboin. Welcome to the inaugural show for The Future is Female. Guys?
Woo. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. We're excited to be here. We're excited to talk about some sports and some women, and it's so exciting to have women in sports. Just excited to have a show, guys. It is official. So, Nicole, you want to start us off?
Of course.
Do we want to have Gabby start us off? Who wants to start off?
I will take the reins here on the very first show. So we have a great show coming up for you. We got Women's March and its impact on sports. That's coming up next. We have the very first woman to ever referee an NFL playoff game, the Aussie Open, and women's basketball. So the Women's March is taking place all over the country today, and it's the third year in a row this march has happened. Opinions on the march are widespread and polarizing. It gets political, but the impact of the march on women and women in sports, as well as the Me Too movement, can't be denied.
No, absolutely. I think, the Women's March, has definitely made women's in sports and women in the sports industry a much more visible subject. And I think it's definitely become more talked about, which is a good thing. And it's definitely become more of a topic around equality in sports. I mean, you can start with the Michigan skate scandal with Nasser and the entire gymnastics team at the Olympics. I mean, just that story alone has broken so many other stories.
And it's a story that's still going on.
Oh, 100%. And it's not going to stop probably until the next couple years, in my opinion.
Unfortunately.
I agree. 100%. But you can start talking about, women's equality in sports, and it's still an ongoing subject, even though it's 2019 now, and it's just, hopefully, we as a society can take a look and say, you know what, women, you guys are just the same as men, you guys have the same amount of talent, so let's treat you guys the same.
Exactly, and the USA women's soccer team really has, for the past couple years, been kind of the head of that, if you will, in the USA until the USA gymnastics team this past year. Right. They wanted an equal pay cut, not necessarily equal pay, but the same percent, getting the same percent back. Right. And the USA women's soccer team is better than the men. Sorry, but they are.
Hands down. If you look at, how the men's soccer team plays to how the women's soccer team plays, you cannot say that the women's are not a better team. And it just comes down to, how well the women's team plays, and the fact that they were not getting the same cut out of, revenue from their sold-out arenas, as the men who barely sell out games, that's just absurd.
They couldn't even make the World Cup.
Exactly. The women's are slotted to be number one and win the World Cup in 2019, 2020.
They probably will.
They probably will. And they just started matches in Paris, actually.
But honestly, look at, you want to talk about the impact that the Women's March has had. Think about the impact that Team USA Women's Soccer has had. Not just on the game, but off the field. I mean, think about Abby Wambach. Think about Alex Morgan. I can remember watching the World Cup back in 2010. I was I was about 10 years old when that World Cup was on. Gosh, I feel kind of old now, not gonna lie. But anyways, you look at the impact that Abby Wambach had, and you look at the impact that Alex Morgan had during that World Cup. I think Alex Morgan at the time, she was called the Barbie doll of the team. She was 22 years old. She just graduated from Stanford. And the Team USA Women's Soccer, they were icons. They stole the hearts of people in this country. There's stole the hearts.
No doubt. And I remember watching the Olympics thinking, these girls are so cool. They're just undeniably cool. Alex Morgan had hat tricks. You cannot say that they are not at the top of their game and at the top of that level of that sport. And I think, in my opinion, I think they could take the men's team right now. I think if you're gonna play
hot
U.S.
take.
Okay, yeah,
US
that's
don't
a
disagree.
hot take for
versus
sure.
U.S. men's right now, like
y'all heard it right here first. Sarandon is calling the men's team out right now, saying
I'm not saying
our girls
that
team is
they're-
gonna kick yo butts.
I'm not saying the men's team is bad. I'm just saying our women's team is that much better.
But they're also dysfunctional. I mean, when you look at we're not ripping on the men's team right now.
are.
We
We love
saying,
our men's team. Go USA.
It's just
We got a lot of American pride up in here.
it's just we've seen the dysfunction that they've had the past couple years with the head coaches,
right,
and it just players not really buying into it, and can't really blame them. The coach hasn't really put them in a position to. And to not make the World Cup, I think, was just the breaking point of everything for the USA men's soccer team.
And what I think when you look down at who is coming to play in the men's team, for women, girls play soccer, I think, because I played soccer, at a much higher rate or percentage than men play soccer. Because guys will play football, or they'll play baseball, or they play basketball. Women, it's usually soccer, volleyball, or basketball, and softball. And that's it. And then none of those really have, a goal to be professional unless you're soccer. You can maybe get on the USA softball team now because they're just now putting it back into the Olympics for 2022. And then the WNBA.
Yeah.
And other than that, there's not really a professional route. But for men, it's always you watch the NFL, you want to play in the NFL, you watch the MLB, you want to be in the MLB. So I think, with men's soccer, especially in the U.S., which is a shame, I don't think they have as much talent feeding into it as women's soccer does.
I think you're absolutely right, and you also make a really great point, is that the men's, they have, the NFL and the MLB. For women to go pro, it is just that much harder, because you gotta either get to the WNBA, which is essentially the easiest route here, because otherwise you have to be good enough in, say, swimming to go pro. You have to be good enough in softball to be on the USA team.
Which is extremely hard, because you can play in college, but it's the best of the best of college play on the USA women's team.
And it's like basketball, there's a league dedicated to women, and honestly I think since the Women's March in 2017, you just look at the growth of a sport like basketball, even in just the last 2 years. I mean, it's been instrumental in the growth of the game. But if you look at more, I guess people would say more exotic sports, sports that are outside of the 4 major professional leagues in North America. You look at swimming, you look at softball, you look at tennis,
water polo,
you look at golf, water polo. There's one team you can be a part of, Team USA.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the one team you can be a part of.
Cool.
Yeah. And I mean, other sports, at least even for men and for women, other sports have entire leagues dedicated to them.
Right.
And I think, honestly, I can't necessarily say that in our country there's gonna be there's gonna be this insane growth, to the point where there's instantly gonna be a swimming league and a water polo league. they don't even have that for men, let alone for women.
Right.
Yeah.
And
swimming, it's a little bit harder, but for say softball, have teams like the MLB, but at the same time, what revenue would it bring in? And I think that's the question you ask, and it's if they play the same season as an MLB, even saying to myself, I'm well, if I'm not doing anything, I'll get up, excuse me, and go to a softball game.
Right.
But, going to a Cubs game or going to, the Chicago softball team, the Cubs game, Wrigley Field, it's still the more popular option. And that's not softball's fault. That's not anybody's fault. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But I also think, we're coming into a time where probably in the next 10 years, you're going to see an explosion of women athletes. And that's because, 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't really any leagues for people or for girls to play in. It was kind of the 80s and the 90s that it started really picking up for, Little League and, high school sports to have that. So I think, now we're getting to the time where all of these girls who have grown up playing Little League and, all the different leagues are now finally getting to the age where, they can play college. And I think that's where it's really going to shine, is that you're going to have so many more women athletes coming in through the ranks than you do in these, niche sports, as you would say. for the men's side, it's basically the 4 main and then maybe a few stragglers in the niche sports.
Yeah.
And that's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, to kind of move along on that same subject, you're talking about niche sports. You're talking about how it's connected to the Women's March. You look at something like the hashtag #MeToo movement that showed up on Twitter and everything like that. It took over social media. It was, it was world renowned. It kind of showed the power of social media on a global scale. And obviously the root causes of the #MeToo movement are incredibly detrimental and polarizing to talk about, because it's talking about sexual assault and it's talking about domestic violence. It's talking about people of power taking advantage of people who don't have as much power, and to the point where it's incredibly violating to the individual. But like you talk about the #MeToo movement in terms of sport, especially niche sports like the sport of gymnastics. Both the men's and women's teams, it's mostly the women's team, of course, that made headlines with, like, Dr. Larry Nassar and everything like that. And, like, the hashtag #MeToo movement, it really started coming up in, like, January 2017 and within, like, the last 2 years. I mean, you talk about the impact that's had on the sport of gymnastics, on just Team USA sports in general, the lack of surveillance and everything like that, the amount of power that's kind of being not necessarily yielded over to the woman, but just like this idea that the woman should just be on the equal playing field in sport.
Right. And I think overall that's amazing and we need that, but I think we also have to look beyond just the athletes. I think we need more women in office roles of, in the office of teams, as owners, in the front office, or coaches or something. Like, you cannot just be, a women athlete in a women's league with all men running the show, because it's still not going to be equality. Equality means that, you have all aspects of the sport, all aspects of the league has equal representation, and if we don't have women in the front office, then we're not going to reach equality, no matter how pro our sports are, no matter how many games on prime time we show women's athletes and women's games. It's just more of, like, we cannot just look at, athletes and getting representation for them. We also have to look for those that want to work in the front office and seeing, more women owners, more women, managers, something like that.
Yeah, and I think to finish things off, going off the woman in sport, woman in equality, where are we today, as I see on your computer, it brings up ESPNW. ESPNW was started, I can't remember what year, because I came up with this off the top of my head, but ESPNW, they have, like, the cursive W, it's all, like, kind of lightly colored, the website. It's a very nice website, don't get me wrong, but the fact that there is that, kind of says something about ESPN. Yesterday I did see a women's basketball game on ESPN, so that was cool. Because, you just don't see that often.
It's there. Like,
I'm glad ESPNW exists. But
ESPNW, also, if you guys don't follow ESPNW on Twitter, you will see the most amazing content for just women athletes, and sometimes it's the most amazing things. Like, they were one of the first people to post the viral gymnastics by the UCLA gymnast where she was dancing and it went
Caitlin Ohashi. Caitlin Ohashi, the senior.
That was awesome.
So they were one of the first ones on that beat, and, I saw it on their page, and I was like, yes.
Yeah,
So if you guys don't follow them, give them a follow, because they give some amazing content. And we're not sponsored by ESPNW, but...
And for those of you who don't know who Caitlin Ohashi is, she is a senior on the UCLA gymnastics team.
Right.
And she has been very candid and very open about her journey through gymnastics, and how it has been both, like, in a way, it's been both the best and worst thing to ever happen to her. She, she has really... She's grown up, with a lot of anxiety and depression, especially she was a part of Team USA Gymnastics with Kyla Ross, and she was on track to go to the Olympic Games back in, 2012. And she had this one routine this past season. So we're in the 2019 season right now. In the 2018 season, she had a floor routine that was based on Michael Jackson's. It was one of Michael Jackson's most famous songs. It was it was a tribute to him. And she has this one move where she'll literally do a triple back handspring, and then she'll fly up in the air about 5-6 feet off the ground on this springy board, and she lands flat in the splits. And it was a video that literally went viral during the lead up to the gymnastics season. So I mean, honestly, quite the story. I mean, you said you saw it on Twitter, so it exploded. It absolutely exploded.
And I think like just even that aspect of it, where it's like women may not get representation in primetime for a while, and we're seeing it slowly increase more and more. But I also think, if we use social media and women use social media more to highlight those little moments of like women athletes like Ohashi, and like maybe show Serena Williams or some aspects of women's athletes where they're succeeding in a way that everyone can just be like, yeah, that's awesome, like let's get behind that. And then I think it will eventually move towards progression and equality.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, you can see just the last 2 years the impact that it's really made. And we're going to go to break really quick. When we come back, we are going to be talking some NFL football. Stay tuned, everyone, here in the Bill Austin Radio Studios in downtown Phoenix. This is Blaze Radio.
You play ball like a girl!
Well, you kind of throw like a girl. But when a girl is as beautiful as you, she doesn't have to be good.
Wait, what?
On The Future is Female, hosted by Sarandon, Raboin, Gabby Ducharme, and Nicole Pinter, we believe that everyone should know how to throw like a girl.
Tune in to our show every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. to hear the latest on what's going on with women's sports and women in sports. And now, since we are kind of in the midst of NFL playoff season.
Kind of.
Yeah, we are in the heart of it.
I know. We are going to talk about the good old National Football League. Our first story we want to talk about is kind of a major one. And when we talk about representation, it's Sarah Thomas is the first female referee to ref a playoff game.
Hey, let's get it!
And she just did it this last weekend against the Patriots versus the Chargers. And so, let's talk about what that means about, having a female referee in the National Football League. Nicole, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, as someone who lives, breathes football, it's so cool to see that happen, and especially in like a pretty big game, or what we thought was a pretty big game. I don't know, the Chargers left it all in LA, I guess, but it was cold. I don't know, we were all rooting for you, LA. They should still be in San Diego. Anyway,
they should. It literally throws me off so much.
I don't like it. Okay, anyway, that's not the point. That's a discussion for another day.
Yeah,
but what we thought was going to be a really good game, where LA had the chance to go into New England, where big calls are going to be made, and she gets to ref that game
right
in Foxborough, nonetheless.
I mean, that game had a likelihood of having one of the most viewed out of the playoff, the championships, the NFC and the AFC.
Had a great chance to be the best playoff game we've seen all
because
playoff season.
When the Patriots are involved, everyone either tunes in to watch them lose or tunes in to watch the victory lap. So, it's
going into that a little bit. I think, why are we doubting the Patriots? Can I just ask? It's Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, for crying out loud. Now that Tom Brady has said, yeah, everyone thinks we suck. Shoot, the Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl. Like, they have a chip on their shoulder.
You are really pro-Patriot.
Oh, I'm pro Tom Brady. No, that's not my final prediction. We'll get into that later. But just the fact that they have created themselves as the underdogs and have a chip on their shoulder, wow. They're dangerous. They are so dangerous, and I'm scared. But anyway, Sarah Thomas reffing that game is just, it means so much to women in the NFL. We've seen women, I want to say it was the Arizona Cardinals where she had a position of some sort, but correct me if I'm wrong, but not Sarah Thomas herself, but someone else.
It was a coach.
Coach, yeah. We've seen, I'm really blanking on their names, but San Antonio Spurs has hired assistant.
Becky Hammond.
Thank you. So
and we saw our first play-by-play called by both two women on Amazon Prime.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah, it was
It's just-
Hannah Storm and Andrea Kramer,
Right.
the two who did the Amazon Prime calls.
Oh
Right.
yeah, it's just amazing to see the doors opening. You know, it's Amazon Prime, and you know you kind of have to go in and make it a setting, but it's still happening. It's still growing, and we're starting to see the ball rolling there, and
Right.
it's awesome.
Right, and I think, like, if the NFL starts to do it, then it definitely makes a statement. Because
Oh, yeah.
the NFL is the most watched sport in the entire country.
Oh yeah,
Like, nothing is even close. If you looked at the ratings, because we just did this, we looked at the ratings for the top 10 most watched sporting events in the country in the last year, so in 2018.
yeah.
The NFL was 9 of them. You know what?
I
You
did
know
see
what
that.
broke?
I did what?
Game 7 of the World Series. That's what broke into the top 10.
Yeah, everyone probably tuned out of Game 6 after they hit the 14th inning, but I know I wanted to. But yeah, I mean, for the NFL, who's really had a hard time with, you know,
Representation in general.
Representation.
I mean, we talked about, you know, Kareem Hunt. We've talked about, God, I'm blanking. Oh my God, Reuben Foster.
Yeah.
You know, those kind of situations. For them to bring a woman into ref a playoff game,
Right.
it's just, you know, okay, they're understanding, they're hearing us. You know,
Yeah.
maybe not completely. Maybe, you know, Roger Goodell's still the commissioner, but, you know, changes are being made.
And I
Stuff
think
is happening.
I think it's important to acknowledge, like, the success, but not be content with it.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think,
Yeah.
like, you know, one woman in one playoff game making as a referee does not make it equality, you
Yeah.
know? The NFL in 2017 was given a C by the Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sports NFL Racial and Gender Report Card. So,
I'm not surprised by that.
Oh,
I'm
no.
not either.
I'm not
Don't
very
get me
surprised by
wrong.
it.
Like, that does not make me think the NFL is any better and or worse than what I thought it was. But at the same time, I think it's important to realize that, you know, the NFL has a chance here to make a statement and that they should open the door more. Like, because now the women have their foot in. Now it's time for the NFL to be like, okay, come on in.
Kick the door down.
Open the door and,
Well,
like, just accept them.
If you look kind of at the history of the NFL, it's like, because if you look at it like coaching wise, like, yes, the referee thing is huge, and I mean it is 2019, so it is time for women to get those same opportunities in the NFL, but in terms of coaching wise and stuff like that, like you look at the NBA. The NBA has always feels like the NBA has been like quote unquote the most progressive league out of some of the 4 major sports leagues. Like the MLB, like Major League Baseball has been around the longest. It's got the most tradition attached to it. It's really a lot of people say that Major League Baseball is kind of stuck in its ways. The games are long. You know, it attracts a certain niche audience of people. It's America's pastime. NFL, you know, it's always kind of been like the manly man's game. And then like NBA, obviously, it definitely still has a lot of work to do, but like in terms of coaching, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, Becky Hammon becoming the assistant coach for the San Antonio Spurs. In the NFL, I mean, do you guys think that we're going to start seeing coaches on the sidelines anytime soon for like women coaches?
I think assistants, you know, they kind of have to work up like everyone else.
Right.
You know, start high school, college, you know, or wherever they start, but, you know, probably should be high school or college. And, you know, they do have to work their way up like everyone else. They do have to prove themselves. And I think, you know, that shows, and especially, like, you know, you see the locker room chats, I'll call them, you know, after the games, you know, and can you envision a woman being in there? I think, yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's going to take, like, you know, hey, guys, like, this is okay. Like, she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's talking about.
Right.
And I don't think all the players in the NFL are going to need convincing, but they will still need to prove themselves.
I think it's going to be harder for the NFL than any of the other sports.
I agree.
And here's why. I think with baseball and basketball, it's going to be and even hockey, it would be way easier because
Yeah.
women can play very similar sports to that. Baseball,
Yeah.
you have softball. Basketball is the exact same game, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then hockey, verbatim. I think with the NFL, since, there's not really a league for women to play football at the same kind of level and or same kind of training,
Yeah.
like, it's going to be really hard to, bust through those naysayers and say, she knows her stuff. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, a lot of what coaching is experience. And if you don't have that, then I don't think you necessarily have the opportunity to make a coach. I think where the NFL needs to have representation is not necessarily on the sidelines with the coaching. I'm okay with that. Because I think with coaching and with the NFL especially, I think, you want former players, you want people growing up around the sport a little bit more, and people who understand the strategy from playing it. I think where the NFL needs representation is in the front office and as owners or as referees. Because I think they can break in there. I don't think they can break in coaching.
And honestly, that's one thing that I've heard stories before about NFL, about women working in the NFL who are they're trainers or
Right.
they're they'll be assistant quarterback coaches or something like that. So the glass ceiling is there to be broken, but you have a valid point in the fact that women really can't make up for the fact that they just do not play the game
Right.
of football as commonly. It's just not something that attracts to the female population as much. It's not something that.
But not even that.
interests
It's
them as much.
I would have loved to play football, but I just
same.
didn't. And I just I didn't want to be on the only girl on the team in high school. And I've never, I've thrown the ball around, of course, and I've, played at, family events or whatever, but I've never,
those typical Thanksgiving Day family flag football
100%.
games.
Where we all think we're Larry Fitzgerald, making these insane catches. When
Oh, absolutely. And then you trip on a rock, halfway through the grass, and you're like, oh! And then you just fall over, and the ball's still flying. You're like, okay!
Yeah.
My Fitzgerald moment is over.
Right.
I'm going to go back to something you said earlier with, growing up around the sport. I'm going to disagree with you a little there. I think as far as playing the sport, I agree.
Yes.
But growing up around the sport, because, my brother taught me to catch a ball when I was, 2. But where I'm going with this is, what we're seeing now in NFL coaching, and something else to be brought up is minorities. But I'm going to say, whether you can coach or not. That's
Right.
final. But what we're seeing now is coaching trees. Andy Reid's coaching trees. Bill Belichick's coaching trees, which, honestly, Bill Belichick's coaching tree hasn't really worked. But, he still has that. People are still hiring from his staff. And now people want, did you sit down with lunch? Did you sit down with Sean McVay at lunch? You're hired. They want Sean McVay coaching trees now.
Yeah.
Because he's just this offensive guru.
That, look at the
and
Cardinals'
NFL's
new head coach hire. That came out from a coaching tree.
Yes, it did. That one's a little questionable. See, I love the hire, but when you have a losing record at Texas Tech, but I'm excited to see where it goes.
It was his first year as a head coach there.
Yes, that is true.
Someone just left for Arizona, and so, he did need to get his bearings. I think when you're a coach, you're given 3 years to kind of get your bearings.
Yeah.
Obviously with
Steve Wilkes kind of proved he just
Yeah, no, I mean, there are extenuating circumstances for some of these other coaches. Obviously, Steve Wilkes was not working out. He kept blaming it on the preparedness of his coaching staff. And obviously, if you can't get prepared, how do you expect your team to be prepared? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and Marvin Lewis was finally fired. Oh, my.
Yeah.
If you're looking at, so you have coaching trees on one end. Do you think there could possibly be, how should I phrase this? Almost like a Sarah Thomas tree. Now that there's one NFL referee, one woman NFL referee, how many more are we going to see next season? Or will it only be her for a really long time?
See, that's the question that the NFL, I think, needs to make the decision on. I think it's up to them, because I think there
So
are
the ball
women.
is in their court
I think the
now.
ball is in their court.
Okay.
I
absolutely.
think, there are women referees, I'm sure, going into training, I'm sure, who have considered the job opportunity and maybe
Yeah.
didn't see it as viable.
Yeah.
So I think that ball is in the NFL's court and being like, hey, listen, we want you guys. And so if they do that, then obviously we will see more women referees. But if they don't, I could see Sarah Thomas being the one-time thing for the next couple years. And that's a shame. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, because the ball was in Sarah Thomas's court this last weekend, and she proved herself. She did her
Right.
job correctly. She proved that she could do it. And I think now it's up to the NFL to respond, either by continuing to grow this idea of female referees or
Right.
by shutting it down. Which, if they shut it down at this point, like you said earlier, they've kind of gotten the ball rolling. The door is open, and female referees aren't instantly going to stop coming.
Right. And I just think, at this point, I don't maybe see it coming in the next 2 or 3 years. I see it coming in the next 5 to 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That it will really take hold. Because it's just one of those things where we're just now seeing it and we're just now seeing that it's viable. So we need the girls to start training. We need,
Yeah.
the wave, I don't think has happened yet.
Yeah.
And I don't think it will happen for the next couple of years.
Yeah. So, Sarah Thomas, first woman to ref a NFL playoff game. Before we go to break, let's get our predictions on the NFC and AFC championship game. NFC championship game is Rams at Saints, a rematch of a Week 9 matchup. If you remember where Michael Thomas pulled out the old flip phone for Joe Horn. That was awesome. Best celebration. But
Right.
we have the Rams at the Saints and the Patriots at the Chiefs. Also a rematch, except this time in Kansas City. Guys, can Andy Reid get it done, and can Sean McVay break through, or is this Drew Brees' year? And we'll do Super Bowl predictions next week, so don't go too far.
I think this is Drew Brees' year to get get back to the Super Bowl. I think the last time he was in the Super Bowl is when he won it back in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, God, the man is 40 years old. He is not getting any younger, age wise, but he ages like fine wine. He is aging backwards. This is a Benjamin Button case or something like that. He is like the LeBron James of the NFL. His body just has not shut down on him. He's like Tom Brady. He's the Tom Brady that nobody really talks about as much.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think the Saints are gonna be in, and I think. I don't know. I really want the Buccaneers to make it as well.
Buccaneers?
Bucks.
The Patriots?
The Patriots. Yeah, I'm sorry. The Patriots.
I was like, I don't know what game you're watching.
Sorry.
Well, they hired Bruce Arians, but no,
Oh my
you're
God.
good.
Yeah.
Your predictions?
My predictions. Well, I think, it's hard to go against the way that the Saints have been playing lately. And they really look to me, one of the best teams in the playoffs. Now, the Rams, last year was their first playoff run in the wild card, and they didn't do very well. And then this year, they have a little bit more momentum because they beat the Cowboys. But at the same time, I don't know if I trust that young of a team yet. I think I trust Drew Brees a little bit more in the big pressure situation. So I'm going to go with the Saints over the Rams. And then for Patriots and Chiefs, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. And you're looking at me like I'm crazy, but it's okay.
No.
I just think, the Chiefs in Arrowhead, it's going to be rocking. It's going to be hard.
It's going to be cold.
It's going to be cold.
Ooh.
Not that the Patriots aren't used to the cold, because they are, but it's almost like a different kind of cold.
Arctic blast is what the Weather Channel is calling it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I
good
think,
Lord.
the Chiefs, if they come out and they just, score early, I think it could be over for the Patriots. Not to say that there could be a fourth quarter comeback. I could see that for the Patriots.
Yeah.
And to give you guys some perspective, weather-wise, it's like in the 60s right now. None of us are wearing heavy jackets. I'm wearing jeans that are rolled up and a short-sleeve t-shirt, and I'm completely fine weather-wise. So when you hear, what was it? It was called
Arctic Blast around kickoff. And it's night, so it's only going to get colder. So
we have no bearing of how cold that would be.
No, we really
don't.
It's going to feel like about negative 30 degrees there.
Oh
probably.
My God, no, thank you.
So finish up. I'm gonna agree. Drew Brees is my boy. You know, once the Bears were out, I'm like, Drew Brees, like, it's all him. I'm living vicariously through Saints fans now. I really
R.I.P. Chicago Bears.
Need a new kicker. Robbie Gould, please come back. You know, Saints. I just they're at home.
Yeah,
they're in
hard
the
to
dome
bet against them.
Yeah, I think Jared Goff, like. The Bears, the Bears gave, you know, kind of the rundown of how to beat the Rams. Take Todd Gurley out of the game, make Jared Goff do more than he wants to do.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And you have this game won. And I think the Saints defense will do that. I can see it being around the same score it was last time, 45-35.
Yeah.
Around that high scoring. But I really like Drew Brees. I like the Saints. I think it's going to be a little more lopsided. As long as the Saints defense takes out Todd Gurley, it's going to be more lopsided than people think. The Patriots-Chiefs, on the other hand, I think is going to be a closer game than people think.
Yeah, it's definitely close.
I think it's Mahomes. I don't think he feels any pressure. I really think he's going to come out and just, you know, blades of glory. I think he's really just going to take a hold of this AFC Championship game. It's at home. It's freezing cold, but I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to come down to a last drive. Whoever has the ball last wins, and I think it's the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Andy Reid finally does it.
He finally breaks the glass ceiling, as we were talking about glass ceilings all day
His
today.
own glass ceiling.
But you know what's actually going to be true? Both games are going to be so much fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
100%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's totally going to be. Luckily, we don't have school on Monday, so all day Sunday, gosh, I mean, I'm not going to be leaving the TV. I'm going to be tuning into these games, and I mean, I highly recommend that everybody else do as well. All right, we are going to take a quick break. When we get back, we are talking the Australian Open and NCAA women's college basketball. Stay tuned right here on Blaze Radio in the Bill Austin Radio Studio.
You play ball like a girl!
Well, you kind of throw like a girl. But when a girl is as beautiful as you, she doesn't have to be good.
Wait, what?
On The Future is Female, hosted by Sarandon, Raboin, Gabby Ducharme, and Nicole Pinter, we believe that everyone should know how to throw like a girl.
Tune in to our show every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. to hear the latest on what's going on with women's sports and women in sports.
I forgot to start recording. But takes out Wozniacki. We have tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, Simona Halep, the number 1 seed, taking on Serena Williams. Madison Keys is on to the 4th round. Sharapova, Sloane Stephens. And in the men's, we got the usuals. Djokovic, Nadal, Federer, and I believe that's men doubles. But I believe we have Murray still going, who we have unfortunate news if you haven't heard. Andy Murray is retiring as long as he can make through this next month of the Australian Open. Murray, according to ESPN, won 3 Grand Slam titles, the 2013 Wimbledon and 2016, and the U.S. Open in 2012, and he has 2 Olympic gold medals. He had hip surgery last January, and he said it's just been too much, he needs a stopping point, and he feels that this is it, that this is time. Also going on, we have some new rules where John Isner will not have to play for 5 hours ever again, hopefully, as long as every Grand Slam picks up this new rule. But now, when it's in the final set of a 6-6 tie, the tiebreak will be first to 10. I have heard it's first to 10, you don't have to win by 2. I've also heard that you have to win by 2, so I'm not quite sure which one it is. But John Isner, bless your soul, you never have to play for like 6 hours ever again, because it's always him for some reason.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
poor guy.
So let's talk these new rules, Andy Murray, and our favorites and predictions.
Okay, so with Andy Murray, it's really sad.
Yeah.
Because you never want to see an athlete go out because of an injury. You always want to see it because, it's just their time to leave.
Their terms. Yeah.
And it's definitely, you can tell he definitely still had more tennis to play. And it's really sad, in my opinion, because he was one of the fun people to watch. He was always really nice on camera in press conferences. He just seemed like a really good guy. And, it's a shame that he has to leave like this. But, sometimes it's the fame and the glory and then the pain and the anguish of, sports. And that's why we love it. And so, my best to Andy Murray. Hopefully he can make it to Wimbledon to end in his home country, because I think that would be fantastic. But, if it's after the Australian Open and he can't play anymore, I get it.
I mean, honestly, I can remember watching Andy Murray during the Olympic Games, especially when he played in London back in 2012. It was actually a pretty big upset that he won.
Yeah, he was a nobody.
He was a nobody back in 2012, and I think he beat Novak Djokovic.
Yeah.
He beat he's beaten many of the greats that have come across in men's tennis, and I want to say he beat Djokovic in the gold medal match. But just as an athlete myself who has suffered from my fair share of injuries in my career and stuff, like when I was in elementary school and middle school, high school, everything like that, I suffered from my fair share of injuries, and I can totally feel for him with this idea that you have more in the tank, but you can no longer use it because your body is just shutting down on you. The idea that it's really that it's kind of out of his control at this point. Honestly, it's kind of, it is upsetting. It is. Tennis is really losing one of the best that has ever graced the court. And, but hopefully, he's built up enough of a legacy that he'll still be talked about when, our children and our children's children are playing the sport of tennis.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And I was wrong. Andy Murray was out in the first round, unfortunately. Took it all the way to 5 sets, though. 4-6, 4-6, 7-5. 7-4, 2-6, but it's because he's had I'm not comparing, but it reminds me of Venus Williams. Not that she's had injuries, but it's just where you want to root for them to win another title, but just some reason they can't get there.
Yeah.
And he's still won 3, but his whole country backing him every Wimbledon is just so fun to see, and we're losing one of those top 4 players in Djokovic and Nadal, Federer, and himself. And it's just, like you guys said, it's sad to see him go. It's sad to see him go like this.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah.
He's happy. He's not going to hurt himself anymore. He had a great career. And, we're not going to forget him. And I hope he still somehow is able to open up a clinic or, still be connected to the sport of tennis. I know he will be, but in just some big way, I hope he's still somehow connected.
Right.
Yeah. And honestly, and so kind of, to Andy Murray, you wish him the best in his career and everything like that, but kind of transitioning over to the women's side of it, a very familiar face, actually the sister of Venus Williams, Serena Williams, is also playing, and she's the number 1 overall seed. Not many people are surprised by that. But
Serena?
No,
Serena
it's
Simona
not.
Halep.
It's Simona Halep?
Halep. Serena is playing Simona Halep tomorrow.
Serena
she's playing the number 1 overall seed. Okay, I apologize for that.
Serena is 16, and she's playing the number 1 seed, something that she hasn't done in a fair time.
Yeah.
Is Simona Halep the one that beat her a few months ago? I remember there was a player who defeated Serena Williams a few months ago. But anyways, what do you guys think? Do you think Serena has a shot tomorrow? Do you think she's gonna win?
Oh, she absolutely has a shot. I think it sounds hard to predict. Simona Halep is also having her fair share of injury problems, not comparable to Andy Murray, but her back she's had problems with. I think it's going to be a great match. I think it's going to go all the way to 3 sets.
Mm-hmm.
I really think Serena takes it. Not easily, though. But it's either going to be easily or, it's one way or the other. There's no in between to me. Where it's
so you don't think it's just going to be a tough competitive match, or?
Well, no, I take that back. I think it will be a tough competitive match, but it's either going to be Serena's game or Simona's game, or match. And one of them's just going to have to take control. But, take the serve and just go with the serve. But I really like Serena to take this, just the role she's had. And she talked about after she won her first match last year at the Aussie Open, she was playing while she was pregnant. Do you guys remember?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was
That was
fantastic.
And she's just...
And she won.
Are you kidding me? I watched the royal wedding last May, and my favorite part was seeing Serena Williams with her little baby, walking up like all cute. Oh, it was adorable.
Yeah, but I think I agree with you. I hope it's gonna be a match, like a battle, and between potentially the next wave of tennis players and versus one of the greatest of all time, and probably will go down next to Billie Jean King as one of the greatest female tennis players of all time.
Greatest athletes.
Of course, athlete. Yeah,
she's the Michael Jordan of her sport, if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So do we have predictions for the women's and men's side for finals? We'll be covering it as it keeps going on. Predictions, anyone? Serena taking it?
I'm gonna have to say that Serena's gonna take it on the women's side. I don't know about the men's side. I think the men's side is a little bit more competitive this year. Than in the past. I can't bet against Serena Williams. I just can't.
No, but I would love to see maybe a Serena and Stevens matchup.
Oh, yeah.
They could potentially match up to go into the championship, and I think that would be fantastic.
The thing about that, though, is she has to get by Kerber.
She does.
And
That's
don't
true.
see that happening. I think it's going to be a Serena-Kerber final matchup. I really, the further we go, I think it's going to be great. I think Sharapova also has a chance to kind of make her way in
30, though.
Oh, yeah, but she's still Sharapova.
She is.
Serena's 16. So seedings are only of where you place, who you play the first couple rounds. So I like Sharapova to make a run, too. I think it's going to be Serena and Kerber, and I have a hard time going against Serena.
Oh, yeah. I think when she gets into her groove, she does really well.
You can't stop her.
You can't. I mean, even so far, she hasn't exerted herself too much. Yeah. You would say. She hasn't had, this is going to be the toughest match for her.
Oh, yeah. She walked through her last one.
Yeah.
And if you look at the seedings, especially look at NCAA basketball, look at tennis, look at anything that involves a bracket of some type, even just look at the playoffs in general, like in the NFL, where it's one and done matches, one and done games. Right. It's you just need to be on for this one game, and then you can prepare for the next one, or what have you. A seeding is literally just a number next to your name, and that's what it is for. That's what it is for Serena. That's what it is for, that's what it is for the 30th ranked player. That's what it is for these athletes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's just a number next to their name, so it should be very exciting to see what ends up happening with the Australian Open, and we'll kind of keep everybody updated on it as the weeks kind of go along. Kind of moving along now to our last topic of the show. We've only got a couple minutes left. NCAA women's basketball, more specifically Arizona State women's basketball. They came into this season ranked in the top 25, and they've kind of stayed in the top 25 throughout the season. They are 12-5 now on their season, so not bad, but
not great.
Not great either, especially when you look at their losses. You look at where this team wants to go. They made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament last year. They were expected to possibly get to the Elite 8 or Sweet 16 this season, but a lot of the teams that they will be facing in the tournament, they have lost to many of those teams. They are 1-4 now against top 25 opponents. They've lost to Louisville, to Baylor, Stanford. Last night they just lost to Oregon. They're up in Oregon this entire weekend. They'll have to play Oregon State tomorrow, who isn't much easier of an opponent. It's a little bit better matchup for the Sun Devils, but I mean, honestly, what are your guys' thoughts on this team? How far do you think they can go, in Pac-12 play and everything?
I think they really need to evaluate the Pac-12 at this point. You're 1-4 or 5. Did you say
1-4?
1-4 against Pac-12 play, and the way you make it to the tournament,
they're 1-4 against top 25.
Or against top 25. Excuse me. And the way you make it to tournament is you got to win your home games, and you got to win, then make it on the road. And so I feel like if they keep it with their home games and they win against conference, they have a potential to be in the lower half of the 25. But, you have to win against those big games. They got a couple coming up. You got Oregon State coming up, right?
Yeah. I mean, they'll go up against Oregon State, and then I believe the following weekend they'll go up against USC and UCLA, which USC and UCLA aren't quite as good as they used to be in the past. UCLA lost 2 girls last year to the WNBA draft. But still both very solid teams, especially UCLA has a really good coach in head coach Corey Close. And, but yeah, I mean, it should be exciting. Nicole, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Pac-12 standings right now, and they're sitting right in the middle, right at 6, with they're 500 currently in the Pac-12 at 3-3. But, they're sitting behind teams that I feel like they should be able to compete well against, like Utah and Arizona. Now they just, they're facing Oregon State. They just lost to Oregon, who is leading the Pac-12. But I like their chances to make it at an at-large. I think, I don't think they'll be highly seeded or anything.
No, I think they'll hit, mid-20s, if maybe break into the teens, late teens, but that's it.
I think, I can see them being going in as 11 or 12 seed into the tournament.
Really?
Yeah.
That high?
That low? An 11 or 12 seed?
Because it's 1-16.
Oh, it's 1-16. My bad. I thought it was 1-25.
But...
No, it's 1-16.
Well, I think just that low, just because I think it's that low when you look at the teams ahead of them in the Pac-12, and then you look at the teams ahead of them in the rankings. You still got, UConn's currently playing Temple. They're up 42-25 at the half.
Oh, that's no surprise. I mean, we all know UConn basketball. Right?
They did lose to Baylor, but they lost at Baylor. I think, obviously UConn, Baylor, you got all these top teams that they're probably going to have to face in the tournament, with being that low of a seed. I can see them making it into the second round or even third round. I believe in them. Obviously not to go all the way. I think there's just too many roadblocks to hit, but they're a good team. Watching them play, they play really well together. They fight for each other. It's got a great coach. They have great chance to prove us all wrong. They're still in the top 25, even though they're 1-4 against top 25 teams. But that's because of the teams they faced.
And honestly,
and those are great tests for them.
They're really, because I covered the team here at Cronkite, and players like Courtney Eckmark and Kiana Ibis and Riley Richardson, these are all girls who are juniors and seniors on this basketball team. Kiana Ibis disappeared in the game against Stanford. She got schooled by a player who was on the Naismith Player of the Year watch list in Alana Smith. Ibis essentially went scoreless through the first 3 quarters of the game, only ended up with 6 points in the game. And she's the leading scorer on this team. Riley Richardson usually is the assister. She's the one who gets her teammates involved. And she disappeared. She disappeared in the game against Stanford. She disappeared in the game against U of A. ASU has just they've been up and down all season. And if they want to, and even their head coaches even stated this, if we want to be among the best, we have to play consistently every night. No excuses at this point. We're a veteran squad. They have 4 or 5 seniors on their team who will all graduate this season. And they know that they have to strike while the iron is hot. The iron is burning hot for this team right now, and they have to start striking on it. They have to start striking on it properly. What a season it's been thus far for NCAA women's basketball. I mean, it's gonna be fun to see what they can do down the line as Pac-12 play really picks up.
Oh yeah, and they still great matchups tomorrow, along with Arizona State playing at Oregon State. That's at 3:00 on the Pac-12 network. We also got Boston College at #1 Notre Dame, 11 o'clock on Watch ESPN or the ACC network. A lot of great top matchups. On ESPN2 tomorrow at noon is Penn State at #9 Maryland. And a top 25 matchup is Michigan State, number 17 Michigan State, at number 20 Rutgers at 12 p.m. I would say most likely on the Big Ten network. It doesn't say here. But a lot of great matchups, a lot of season to go. But it's getting closer to March. It's getting eerily close to March.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and honestly, we'll see.
Be fun to watch.
Yeah, it will be. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is The Future is Female. Sarandon, you want to close us out?
You know what? It's been fun talking to me with you guys today. And, you know, if you guys have any ideas for what we should talk about, make sure to tweet at us at thefutureisfe13. So it's thefutureisfe13. And tweet us some ideas if you guys want to hear us talk about anything specific about, you know, the world of women's sports or the world of women in sports.
Yeah.
So, you know, thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Same time, same place.
Yes.
That is the Future is Female crew. We are closing out from the Bill Austin Radio Studios here in downtown Phoenix on Blaze Radio.